So this is a side view of the brain. We have the transverse cerebral fissure that divides this cerebellum. This is a cerebellum here. This is a cerebrum up here. This is the left cerebral hemisphere. That's the area where we talk when people have a left cerebral hemisphere dominant. They are more analytical. They're more like chemists and accountants and people like that. The cerebral cortex, very thin. The outer layer of your brain is where you do your thought processes, where we think about things. Very thin, about 2 to 4 millimeters is all it is of gray matter. But it has 40% of the mass of the brain. Because of all those convolutions, it makes up most of our brain. It's the site for conscious mind. What does conscious versus unconscious mean, or subconscious?
You're aware or you're not.
Okay, you're aware of what?
Like what your body's doing.
Okay. So if I say I'm going to talk to my subconscious brain, my subconscious brain is taking care of me. What's that mean? What would be subconscious? If conscious means that you're aware and awake, what would be subconscious? Sleeping? Something like that. Not quite.
This is going to sound weird, but when you're conscious, you're aware that you're aware of your subconscious. You're not aware that you're aware.
You're not aware that you're aware, huh?
Like, because sometimes like, you'll learn something you didn't realize you were even paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
So your subconscious is paying. Yeah, so your subconscious knows it. When you're really conscious, you know that you're aware.
You ever left the school and got in your car, next thing you know you're home?
Yep. Yeah, that's why I just actually with my dad. Because I remember I got home most of the time.
So part of that is that's your subconscious brain getting you home. The conscious part of your brain is sitting there thinking about, oh gosh, I'm going to go out with Susie tonight, and I got to get my clothes right put together. I got to get some money. I got to get, oh my, we're going to go out and eat, and then, movie. Oh my gosh, this is going to be a great time. But your subconscious brain is, turn here, dummy. Turn here, dummy. I'm taking you home, dummy. Right? So you get ready for your date. That's your subconscious. You get home and say, how'd I get here? But I'm ready to go for my date. Right? That's the subconscious versus conscious. Really simplified, kind of funny way of looking at it, but that's it, right? Everything that you know, everything that you've done is in your subconscious. It knows when you should turn right, dummy. Turn left. It knows that because it's done it 10 times, or even once. It learns it. So that's the conscious versus subconscious. Each hemisphere connects to what they call a contralateral side of the body. So if you have a right brain dominant, it affects the left side of your body. Left brain, right side. So if grandma has a stroke on the right side of her brain, what side of her body is it going to be affected? The left. So if grandma can't lift her right arm anymore, you know it's her left side of the brain that's been affected. And it's going to affect those aspects of that left brain more than it will the right side. So that's how that all comes about. So there's 3 types of functional areas in the brain. We have motor areas, sensory areas, and association or integration areas. I call them integration areas. I like that term much better than association. Okay, so motor areas tell our body what to do. Remember we talked about the neuromuscular junction and how the stimulation jumps across by way of acetylcholine into the muscle, and zap, we get this action potential? That comes from the brain. Tells us how to move. The sensory areas tells us what's happening in our environment. I can feel that on my fingers. It's going to the brain and we can feel it. I know that I'm smacking my hands together and giving me pain in my fingers. The association areas or integration areas say, cut that out. Why are you doing that to yourself? You're integrating that information. It hurts, don't do it. That's integration. Or it's raining. Take an umbrella. That's integration, right? Conscious behavior involves the whole cortex. So when you're out doing something consciously, you're thinking about it, you're using your whole brain. You're trying to draw on memories, you're working on motor, sensory, right? If you're going to be running a race or running away from a bear, you're not going to be sitting there thinking about, oh, well, let's see, I got to go out with Susie tonight. I got to go. No, you're going to be concentrating on what you're doing. And that's the conscious behavior, the entire cortex, to bring everything about. So primary areas of the brain, we have the primary somatic motor area. That's the motor area. We're talking about movement now. We have the premotor cortex. We have Broca's area and the frontal eye field. We're going to talk about each one of these specifically. But if you look at the brain, it's very complex. They've mapped the brain out. How do you think they figure out the different parts of the brain? How do they map that out?
Like people who have injured that area.
Injured that area? But how do they go in there and they know what, I mean, they've got it all mapped out here.
You just guess.
They just guess?
You just look at it and be like, right there.
Now, is the brain like stuck in that form, or can you like stretch it out because it's all?
Nope, it's stuck that way. Nope, if you lay it on the table, it'll stay that way. It doesn't just go flat like a pancake. All right, so what they've done is they can open up your brain, open up that cranial vault, take the calvarium off, look at it, put it back on. They keep you awake to do it too. That's really cool. They give you a local anesthesia, they cut the head open, and then they can touch it with electrodes and make you do really cool stuff.
So do people like volunteer for this?
Yeah. Especially if they have, well, most of the time they do it like if you have a brain tumor or something. They go in and they'll map out where the brain tumor is, and then they touch around it to see what it's going to affect. Has it affected your speech? Blah, 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 blah. You start talking. They stimulate your right arm. Your right arm goes up. They know the parts of the brain. They stimulate them, and you can make somebody walk and talk by stimulating the brain that way. Because remember, the nervous system makes everything else work in the body.
Can you control what they say?
Yep.
That's weird.
So you can have them reading something, and you stimulate part of the brain that goes blah, 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 blah. It comes out gibberish. Because you've just disrupted that pathway that they've normally set up to understand and speak. It's quite the pathway to speak. To be able to speak, you have to use your muscles in your tongue, your throat, your hyoid bone, your lungs. All that stuff has to be in unison, and each point in the brain is affects those parts. So you can make somebody go blind by touching the right part of the brain or stimulating the wrong part of the brain. Mm-hmm. You can block the signal. You can inhibit it. Or you can.
Just laying on the table because keep you awake for brain surgery.
Yep.
Just in case something happens, and they're like, all of a sudden, the lights go out. That'd be scary.
Yeah, you'd be laying there. You'd have to close you up. Hopefully that they got it right. So the premotor cortex is in the front. Premotor cortex. This is an area that in the brain that allows for precision, skilled, and voluntary movements. We have what they call the motor homunculi. This is part of the brain that they've got from mapping. They've gone in, looked at this, and they have this little picture on the top of your brain. This is what really happens, but this is what they've mapped it out. So the parts of the brain that you see, these little pictures, are what parts of the brain is being affected. So if you see on this part here, you can see the face. Look at how big of a part of the brain is being affected by the face, right? The fingers, fairly large, but down here at the elbow, just a little tiny spot on the brain is affecting the elbow. The tongue is pretty big. It sticks out pretty good too. There's a lot of area for the tongue. But if they go in and they'll touch where the nose is, you'll feel it in your nose. Your nose will twitch. The muscles of your nose will twitch. These are motor parts. These are movement parts. So if I would touch where that little indent of the elbow is, your elbow would go like this. It'd flip, move. You stimulate that area. That's called a homunculus. Pretty cool name too. Homunculus. Sounds like something out of Guardians of the Galaxy or something, right? So, premotor cortex anterior to the precentral gyrus in the front controls learned repetition, pattern, and motor skills. So things like, this comes into play like riding a bicycle or doing things repetitively. Maybe this is where some people have problems with their OCD. They got to do it over and over and over again. Coordinate stimulates sequence actions. So I have to do this before I do that, before I do that. You can figure those things out. Instead of saying, okay, wait a minute, I got to do this one first, then I have to relearn how to do the second one, and then I relearn to do the third one. It puts it all in a sequence for you so that you remember it all at once, that one pattern. So you get on the bike, you put your foot on the pedal, throw your other leg over the top, and you put that foot on the pedal, then you spin. Okay, that's part of that. That's all held as a memory in different parts of the brain. Broca's area. This is more for, in one hemisphere, usually the left side, for speech, motor speech. Not just speaking, but your tongue. How does your tongue work in your throat so that you can speak properly? We have special genes that help us speak more so than other animals. Other animals don't have the same genes that we do in our brain to let them speak. Now, they may be able to speak to each other, and we can't understand them yet, but that'd be kind of cool. If someone in here would develop a way to speak to an animal, you know, like that would be awesome.
Wait, do we know which genes that? Do we know which genes that it is?
Yep.
But can't you like whale talk?
I-
Like you can speak to a whale.
Dory can, but I can't.
But you know, like there is like people. You know, like bird people actually like whale talking to someone.
Okay, I've never met anybody,
Well,
but
I haven't met anybody, but like you see like videos of them like making sounds. You know, sounds exactly like a whale. You never know.
you never know.
Never know.
Are there really like horse whispers and stuff?
Horse whispers? I think if they just understand. They're not really. You know, I think they just kind of understand horses better than anybody else. But I think there are some people that are more in tune to animals than others. They feel what they feel. You know, I really believe that. I think that you have to listen. And like elephants, they can talk to each other, but we can't hear it. We can't even hear their sounds. It's below our register of hearing. And it's kind of weird. And it travels through the ground, and they pick it up by their feet. They found that out. So there may be things that we find, and maybe someone in here will figure this out. How do, you know, they have a nice little box you wear on your chest, and your dog can talk to you. You can talk to your dog because it comes out, when you speak, it comes out as dog language. You know
What if you just, since we know what gene it is, I guess you can't really give them a gene. Boy,
that may be something too. Who knows? Someday we may give them the genetic capability of doing that. But right now, they don't have the same vocal cords and the muscles that we do. So it wouldn't come out as, hi, I'm Bob. Can't do that. What movie is that? Up? Where they have the little box and the little dogs talk?
Yeah.
Maybe someday. Who knows? So sensory areas. We have the motor areas. These are sensory areas. Primary somatic sensory, visual areas, auditory areas, olfactory areas, gustatory, which is a cool area, and visceral sensory area and vestibular cortex. We're going to go through all those. Primary somatosensory. Somato is body. Sensory is sensory sensations, receptors. How are we doing? Brittany says it's time to go. Postcentral gyrus is in the back. Postcentral gyrus receives sensory information from the skin. So if there's a bug crawling on your skin, it goes to that area. Ooh, the bug's there, right? So it gives you that. Then it goes from there through the integration area out to the motor part, and then it makes your muscles move. Shiver, right? Capable of spatial discrimination. So if you have someone and close their eyes and you touch them with 2 pins, you can, and we'll do this in lab when we get to the lab, you can try to see if they can only feel one or two pins at once. That's the part of the brain that tells you, yeah, you're hitting me with 2 pins instead of 1. If that's not, if you only feel 1 and there's 2, there's something wrong with this area of the brain. Here's the sensory homunculus. We have the motor homunculus that tells us how to move what part of the brain's moving our muscles. This is where we're getting the sensation from. And again, you see that the face is fairly large area of the brain. The hands, lots of sensation in the hands, right? The bigger the area on the brain, the more sensory we get from it. Somatosensory association cortex. This integrates the sensory from the primary somatic sensory areas. This determines the size, the texture, and the relationships of objects as felt. Did you ever see that show where they turned off the lights? I don't even remember what the name of it was. It was like dark or something, but they had this like a warehouse, and it made it completely black. And then the people had to go in there and feel around and tell them what it was, right, or describe it. That would be, this part of the brain would be really wild. Oh, it feels like a kitty cat. No, it's a frog, or whatever, whatever, right? You feel the texture, the size, the shape, the relationship with objects that are felt. That's the somatic sensory association. You pick up one sensation, oh, it's fuzzy, but then you also, okay, it's fuzzy, but what is it then? What can be fuzzy? Then your brain has to think of all the things that can be fuzzy. It can be a tarantula, they're kind of fuzzy. Visual areas. We have other areas of the brain that are affected by visual. That helps us to see. Those are in the occipital part of the brain in the back. So what you see out of your eyes goes clear to the back of your head, and then we perceive what it is. I think that's kind of cool. That what we have in the front for our eyes registers in the back of our head. Yes?
Is it true? I think I heard this when I was in elementary school, that your eye sees things upside down, but when it goes to the back of your brain, it flips.
Yep, exactly right. What you see in this eye, it goes to this side of the brain. What you see in this eye goes to that side of the brain. What you see in this eye goes to this side of the brain. It's awesome. It's a really cool setup.
Wait, so why is it upside down?
Because of the way your lenses are. We'll talk about it in a special senses chapter. We got to get there. Auditory areas, this is hearing. Stores memories of sounds and permits perception of sounds. So this is for pitch, loudness. All those songs that you know and you like to sing, those are all stored inside your brain. The auditory areas, we pick them up. Olfactory is smell. We can smell about 10,000 odors. Dogs, cats, maybe 30, 40,000 odors, right? So if you have someone sitting next to you and they kind of stink a little bit, maybe that's kind of, you got a heightened area olfactory cortex. Gustatory cortex is in the insula, kind of inside the brain, and this is taste. Taste. I'll ask you when we get into the special senses chapter what sense you would give up if you had to. Conscious perception of visceral things, visceral sensory area. This is visceral, means like your gut, your organs inside of you. What is this? What is you doing? Okay, so conscious perception of, is my bladder full? Is it stretched? I have to go to the bathroom pretty soon, but I can wait. That's the perception in this area here. How is it feeling? Vestibular cortex. This is your balance, position of your head. Is your head up? Is it down? Are you spinning? Are you in the ocean? This part of the brain is where that's all registered, the vestibular area. And they're all labeled in the brain. They've mapped them all out. So you can look those over and find out what they are. Then we have what they call multimodal association areas. These receive inputs from multiple areas, not just one thing. So instead of just your smell going up to the insula, now we have not only smell coming into those different areas, but we're bringing in more and more areas. So this allows us to give meaning to information that we receive. What does it mean? I mean, when we see a little animal that's black and has a white stripe in it, what does that mean? Skunk, right? But you had to learn that. You had to learn that that was a skunk. And then what's the next thing when you say, oh, that's a skunk? Then what do you think about? They smell. They stink, right? So all those things, those multiple sensations are coming to your brain to give you that idea that that's a skunk, it smells, stay the heck away from it. Or mom's going to douse me in tomato juice. Right? That's
Why is tomato juice?
It's the acid that neutralizes the smell. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
You ever got sprayed by a skunk?
What's that?
You ever got sprayed by a skunk?
No, I've had. We had we were dissected in my biology class once, and somebody brought in a skunk, and we dissected it, and that was one of the stinkiest, rotten thing I ever dissected. Because
They just find it off the side of the road.
they found it on the side of the road, and it was a little bit ripe already. Oh, that was bad, man. That was terrible. I had to throw it away. I could not dissect the whole thing. I said, please let me throw this away. Okay. It smelled all the way through this building. It was terrible. They said, what are you doing? Having fun. So, multimodal, we have 3 parts. We have the anterior accessory, the prefrontal cortex, posterior association, and limbic areas. Prefrontal is more for intellect, cognition, recall, and personality. So if I fall and I land on my forehead, it's going to mess my recall up. It's going to mess up my personality, which is really fun, right? It can make it so that you take somebody that's really nice and makes them an ogre, makes them terrible. They don't care. This is where their social abilities are. They'll cuss you out. They'll be mad. They don't care if they kill you or not because they had that injury in the front of their head. It messes them up really bad.
Can it work the other way too? Like, can it make a really mean person really nice?
I'd never seen it do that before. Possible. Anything's possible. This contains memories for things like judgment, reasoning, persistence. You know, if you damage this area to reason out, well, that person hurt me, I'm going to go hurt them. That's the reasoning that they would go with instead of, no, it's okay, we'll let it drop, right? Social environment is really a part of that. Posterior association area, we associate things with patterns of faces and recognition. If I see Tevin walking down the street, I will say, oh, I remember that face. Name, what is his name? You know, that sometimes becomes a problem, but this is that area here where you recognize patterns and faces and how things work. Sometimes people have this area damaged and they can't remember your face. They can't remember who you are, especially with people with Alzheimer's. It affects this area and they'll say, I'm sorry, I don't remember you, but next time I meet you, we'll be new friends again. You know, they don't remember that at all. Okay. Also involved with this is written and spoken language in Wernicke's areas. Wernicke's areas is, if you get this damaged, you can't read or write properly. It just doesn't work. Limbic areas. This is really cool because this is your emotional area. This is impact on your emotions. Whether something feels good or feels bad is affected by this, your limbic area. Like if you kiss somebody and go, whoa, that's these, firecrackers go off. That's part of this limbic area. When we have what they call lateralization of the cortical functions, means that one side of the brain is working in different ways than the others. Okay, so I'll give you, when we come back on Friday, I'll give you a little test to find out if you're left brain or right brain dominant. Right? So left hemisphere in 90% of the people is dominant. Left brain is dominant. That's why 90% of the people are right-handed. Left-handers in here? Anybody? Left-handers? No? Everybody's right-handed in here? So you're part of the minority. Boring.
So what does that mean?
So my son is left-handed, so that means he's.
The other side of his brain is dominant. Well, only not all the time.
What about people who are ambidextrous?
Yeah.
They don't have the lateralization. They have that ability to work both sides. But and this isn't always true either, because sometimes people have the right brain dominant, should be left-handed, but they're not. Because what happens when they're growing up, they pick up something with their left hand, mom takes it out, puts it in their right hand. No, you will not be left-handed, you will be right-handed, right? And it messes them up that way. But
I should have did that to him.
so, but you can make millions of dollars if you can bat right and left-handed in the professional leagues, right? So, nothing wrong with that either. Okay, well, we got a lot more to talk about. So Friday we'll work on that, or well, even if we get done early tomorrow, we're going to lecture a little bit on this stuff too. So make sure that you have that thing done, that chart done, completely done. You get credit for it, for one thing, and you're going to need it for your little quizzy thing we're going to do.
Quiz. Quiz better.
What was I gonna say? Oh, can you set bus exam 10 for me?
You said it?
Yeah.
Sure.
And then, oh, I don't know.